What's the first thing you think about when you know that you're the person being charged with arguably the most important royal interview in our lifetimes?
It's 4 letters.
Yeah.
You know, you can choose what it starts with, but that's the first thing that goes through your head.
Right.
So just as I'm talking to you now, I can feel my solar plexus, and I can feel
Can
the
you
sort of quickening.
remember that feeling?
Yeah. I mean, it's not a one-off. It's every time somebody comes to you with, you know, an interview.
Yeah. Where were you then when you found out about this one?
Well, it wasn't, funnily enough, it wasn't that I was told in that way, because we had been part of the bidding process.
Right.
So right from the very beginning, we had a brilliant sort of team at Newsnight, and we had gone for, I think, 2, possibly 3 visits to the palace. And the first time we'd met his advisor, his sort of assistant, and we kind of came out and we were like, I think that went well. You know, when you can't quite tell, you're like, did that go well? I think it went well. Yeah. Was it all right? Did she like it? And you replay each other's words. Like, oh, she liked it when you said that. Oh, no, but she liked the bit where you said, oh, I think, are we okay? Anyway, and then you're just playing a waiting game. And to be honest, there are so many interviews that don't come off, right? We're always bidding, you know. Bid for everyone. You bid for presidents and popes and God, and you know, you just keep bidding, basically. Yeah. And so it's never a surprise when something doesn't come off, because by then you've just had to, you know, realign and move on to the next thing. And so we kind of did it, and then there was a little pause, and then we got invited back. And at the point where we were invited back, I was like, okay, this is quite serious.
So can I just jump in there and ask, what's going on in your head? You know, you said that 4-letter word is your immediate gut response.
Yeah.
What are you telling yourself?
I'm fighting 2 things. So sometimes you deceive your own head, right? And I do it quite often. If I'm scared of something, I go, oh no, I don't think it'd be very good. Oh no, I don't think it's that important. I don't think it'll really work, you know. So instead of saying, how amazing, you try and push it away, and you go, oh, I don't think it's what we do. I don't think I'd be very good at it. I don't think that's for us. You know, you find ways of sort of excusing the not doing it, or the it not being a success. Oh, well, I don't think anyone was really expecting that. You know, so you're trying to put a little bit of insulation between you and failure, aren't you? Because the alternative is that you say, I'm going to do that, and I might screw it up, right? So instead of admitting that to yourself, which is too big a thought in one go, you go, oh, I don't think anyone would, I don't think we'd really miss that, you know. And the truth is, no one, if we hadn't got it, no one would know. So you've always got that to hide behind. No one knows, right, until you actually do it. But you're palpitating because you are thinking, this could be the biggest thing I ever do. Quite simply. I mean, professionally, journalistically, this could be the biggest thing I ever do. And if it goes wrong, it will be the worst thing I ever do. And you never think, this will be the best thing I ever do, because that's not how I'm wired, right? I think this has all the potential to be a car crash, which it was, but not necessarily in the way I was sort of thinking. And so, yes, I think you try and protect yourself from the fear by saying, oh, you know, lots of things going on. So that's the sort of neurological feeling, which is, I'm really nervous, I'm really scared of this. And that's when you need a brilliant team around you, because your team is the person who says, of course you're going to knock it out of the park. Of course it's going to be brilliant. And we're going to get to that place, right? And it's never you on your own. It's brilliant camera people. It's brilliant lighting. It's brilliant sound. It's the person who is role-playing with you across the table, right? Who is being the prince, who is putting you through your paces. And I can honestly tell you that my editor, Esme Wren, played that role, and she was way tougher. I mean, I was terrified of her by the end of our hour, because she would push back at me in a really sort of hurtful, incisive way that left me sort of stuttering. And actually, that's the next thing, isn't it? It's preparation. You want to be so clear and sort of just learned in a funny way. It's a weird word, but you know what I mean. You want to know
how
your
did you know
dates.
what to learn, though? Like, what was the focus of your preparation?
I went through every bit of research I could find.
Right.
So I treated it like a school project, right? Type in the name, read everything that has been written, watch every documentary, go and follow all the different splits on the trees. Who's that person? Who's Stephanopoulos? Who's that? Who was at the party? What were they doing? Who's Virginia Giuffre? What's her connection to him? What's their connection to them? What's the date? Why does it matter that that was Florida, not New York? What's the difference between the jurisdiction in a Florida court versus, a little St. James Island? So you are trying to, again, insulate yourself from mistakes, right? I wanted to be word perfect. I couldn't tell you those dates now, but if you'd asked me that, I would have done it like a mastermind candidate, contestant. I would have said, no, that was 2017, not 2008, or that was the 18th birthday, not the 21st birthday. That was the time he went there. Sorry.
Well, no, I'm interested because I love the depth of research you do. But before you start that, do you have an objective for that interview? If you had to define what success would be for you?
It's a really simple objective, actually, which is that you want to get the most out of your interview and out of your interviewee, right? It's as simple as that. So if I'm doing an interview that leaves people confused, I've failed, right? And if I'm doing an interview which has interrupted or cut somebody short or not got to the bottom of something, I've failed. And so the way we prepared for it was, I sort of think, in Lego, like when you're just freestyling Lego, you build your blocks. If I'm making a house, you get your foundations in place. You don't just build one tower up, right? Oh, I'm just going to follow this one thing I've learned until it topples over. You go, first question, second question, third question, fourth. Where's the bridge between that one? How am I building on that? And so there's a series. If you go back and look at the interview, I was just trying to get things confirmed. So, did you go there? Did you go to the Manhattan House? Yes, I did. Did you go to the island? Yes, I did. Were you on the jet? Yes, I did. Because if at any point the answer's no, then 10 questions you've got don't work. So if he'd suddenly said to me, I was never in the house in Manhattan, I was never in the Epstein house, suddenly I'm thinking, oh, blimey, I've got to rethink that. And you've got to recalibrate really quickly. So part of an interview is you explaining to the audience what you're doing. I'm just checking that I've got my facts right on that. I'm checking I've got my facts right on that. Then you did that. Is that right? Yes. Then I think it was 2018, you did, whatever it is. And you're building the structure of the narrative that everyone understands. So all that is not difficult stuff, but it's slow.
Yep.
And if somebody had said at that point, Emily, you've only got 5 minutes, the whole thing would have been over, because I couldn't have ever got to a place where I was asking, as it were, the bigger questions, the fundamental questions, the allegations that I was putting to him only worked once you had the whole structure sort of solidly in place.
The value for people is really great here, because it doesn't matter whether you're interviewing a member of the royal family or you're focusing on a job or something in your life that's important, the attention to detail, finding tools and ways of calming yourself, which is what you did, really important as well. So you do all these things. You tell yourself it doesn't matter if you don't get it, but you still do get it. Then you do the deep work, which we should all be doing for things that we really care about. I'm sure you had some fear, which is a great indicator that this thing actually matters to you. So you sit down with your producer and you work and work till between you've nailed it, right? So there's very little I'm sure you could have done extra when you walked through the doors of the palace. Even so, with all of that prep, please tell us how it felt to walk into that building.
Dreadful. I mean, dreadful, actually. And you can tell the nervous, like I okay, here's a life secret, right? I'm the most efficient packer I've ever met, right? I love neat packing, right? This is a detour, but I'm just going to give you an example of this. I always travel with a little coffee pot, like a stovetop coffee pot. And I was with my boys once in a little sort of beach place, very sort of low-key, really sweet. And I put the coffee on the stove. The morning after, we got there late, put the coffee on the stove to start the morning after. And the lid starts popping up and down. And I'm like, oh, that's a bit weird. What's going on here? And I see, because it's pressure from the thing, I see this little red child's sock start to push the lid open. And my boys are like, Mum, what have you done? And I was like, sorry, I saw a cavity in the coffee pot and I just thought I'd put all your socks in the top so that I wouldn't waste any room in the luggage, right? They were literally, the socks were packed in the coffee pot and I forgot, and then the coffee started boiling the socks. Not a great start to a holiday, either for my coffee or their socks. But I'm just saying, when I go on holiday, I'm very, very tight and tidy with my packing. The morning I went to Buckingham Palace, I had a bag so big of what? Extra jackets, extra shoes, extra trousers. It was a slight, reflection, I think, of the state of my mind.
Yeah.
That I couldn't quite decide. I was like, what if I've got the wrong thing? Or what if I have to go outside? Or what if I'm, it was almost too prepared. Instead of going in and saying, I'm very happy. I'm very happy with what I've got on and that's fine. I was like, I might spill coffee. I might spill tea. I might be sick.
So what did you do to come out of this red brain?
I hid in the loo.
Did you?
Yeah. I hid in the loo. And I'm not really joking about that, because the one thing I would say is that a good interview is made in the 5-minute silence that you spend on your own before it. And I think that is golden time. For me, it's golden time. And what do I mean by that? That as soon as you're shown into a room, particularly an overawing room, like a Buckingham Palace ballroom, which was where we were, everything starts. There's people kind of checking makeup, there's lights, there's somebody miking you up, there's people coming to shake hands, there's somebody who introduces themselves, there's like, do you want a tea? They're all lovely, it's all helpful, but you lose your silence, right? And actually, at that point, you've got your game face on. And you go, oh, hello, lovely to meet you. Oh, no, oh, that's kind of you. Oh, no, I would, no, sugar. You're starting to be somebody that is sort of playing the social game, right? And I suddenly realized that I just wasn't ready. I just wanted 5 minutes on my own. So I excused myself. And I said, is there a ladies? I mean, it's not, a lady, it's a Buckingham Palace loo. I mean, it's sort of amazing. And I just locked the door. And I remember just sort of sitting in the corner going, right, where's my head? How do I find clarity? How do I just let everything go silent? I don't want to be saying hello. Don't want to be shaking hands. Don't want to be fiddling around. Don't want to be checking buttons. I just want to know where my head is before I go in and do this interview.
What did you find?
You wait for a single note. That's what you do. And sometimes you have this blinding clarity. I can't explain it any other way, but you've got this fog of questions in your head or on your sheets or your notes. I had like 30 questions. And then you think, just like you've said, Damien, what's the question that you're asking? What's the purpose, right? And we always say that in news with headlines. If you can't write a headline if you can't tell a story in sort of 5 words, it's probably not the right story. It's probably not the right headline. Once you've got the clarity and that single note sound, which is like, what am I going in? I'm just going in to find out. And that was the moment when I realized that the only role I had wasn't to trip up. It wasn't to confuse. It wasn't trying to be. I was the one person in the world at that point who could ask the questions that the women wanted answering. Right? That was all. And so actually, it's I found a place of relaxation, because suddenly you're just the conduit, and you take your own mind out. It's not my ego, it's not my questions, it's not. I'm just trying to get to a place where the questions that everyone has been asking, that have been, ricocheting around the press, and why did he do that, and what was that about, and how did he go back, and why was he still friends, and should he have known about the thing, and blah. That's all I had to do. I just had to be the sort of the cable that asked the questions, and that was what I was there to do.
So when the interview goes on then, and it gets to where you've established the facts, you've built the foundations, then you have to ask those searing questions. What was going on there? Was it still the process of just asking the question, or did you have a pause for thought to maybe check yourself and go, do I dare to go in with this?
You're listening so hard, because the trouble with questions is if you're not careful, you're sticking to them, right? And as you both know, sometimes that's the worst thing you can do, because you miss what they've just said, right? So the most essential bit of that whole process is your ear. Like, has he just told me that?
That takes bravery, though, doesn't it?
Well, I think the whole thing takes a different mindset, which is, do I know what I'm trying to ask here? And it's not that you're not asking the questions that you sort of want answered, but you are listening. And there were certain points in the interview where I thought, oh, that's interesting. Oh, gosh, I wasn't expecting that. Just little phrases that were used, which told a whole story in themselves.
Like what, for example?
Like when he said he'd been too honourable, right? That was one of the phrases he used. I said, why didn't you tell Epstein after he was, convicted of paedophilia, that you couldn't maintain a friendship with him? And he said, I went to his house. Maybe that was wrong, but maybe I was too honourable. And I just thought, oh, that's going to strike a really weird note, right? I'm not sure that's going to sound how he wants it to sound. And so that was one. And then there was another point where he talked about, I said, didn't you hold a party for, Ghislaine Maxwell? And he went, no. And I thought, oh my God, I've got this wrong. Because I had my notes and I'd checked and I'd done all the research. And I was like, no, my research is crumbling. And then he looked up and he went, it was a straightforward shooting weekend. And that was the point where I just thought, but I get it. Yeah. We're on different sort of visions of reality here. Because he meant, like for him, a party is 500 people. It's a ball. And the straightforward shooting weekend was kind of 16 people staying in a country house.
He's not going watching llamas, is he?
Right. It's just, the trouble is, I totally got it.
Yeah.
I got the fact that within his context, that was totally different, right? But it didn't mean that when I'd said there was a party, I was wrong. It just meant that, for me, a house party with 20 people is quite a big deal, right? For him, if it's fewer than 500, that's not a party. And so it was just sort of recalibrating, kind of understanding that genuinely from his own position, from his own, obviously, exalted, very different childhood, he came at things very differently. And so there were just those moments where I had to sort of just tweak my brain a bit and understand that he thought he was clarifying, and he was, but there were just these odd turns of phrase, yeah.
So let's talk about the reaction then to the interview. Because I think that in the modern era, particularly in the social media era, the interviewer is as under the microscope as much as the interviewee. Yeah. So the interview comes out, and I'd love to know how you react to other people reacting to your work. How are you with scrutiny and all that sort of stuff?
it went out on Saturday night, and I had my friends staying, and we always do a run to Kew, right? We do like a long, sort of 10-mile run. And so next morning, Sunday morning, we got up and we ran along the bank, did our river run. And she said, "Oh God, we got to talk about this. We've got to talk about this." And I was like, "No, I don't want to." I was really happy with it. It was all fine. It had nice feedback, but I just didn't want to talk about it. I was like, no, when I'm panicking about something, then I want to talk, right? My running chats are really important because they help me sort out my head and my brain and, I don't understand this, and am I getting this wrong? Once I've done something, I'm like, yeah, let that go. I was very happy to let it go. And I remember we ran all the way, and then we got to our little coffee shop, stopped for a coffee, and just a couple of people said, "Oh, like the interview." But that was it. And so I actually came away thinking, it was actually quite quiet. It's all been quite quiet. I hadn't seen any of and then obviously the press over the next few days just kind of took off. I think I'd expected it to be a quieter landing in a way. And you are under the microscope. Of course you are, But I think at that point I was happy with the job we'd done. And I also knew that we'd been very careful each step of the way that we were including the Palace, and his team in what we were doing, what time it was going out, checking after it had gone out, were they happy? And so we felt there hadn't been any ambush, there hadn't been any moment where it was like, just slip that one out. It had all been done rigorously in accordance with what they knew was happening. And so actually, I could walk away. I sort of walked away from the noise at that point because I sort of thought, yeah, you know what? I'm in my head, going back to the start, in my head, I'm happy with that. I was fair. They knew what we were doing. No code of honour was broken.
Hey guys, it's Jake here. Listen, before you go, please do me just one favour. Hit subscribe. It makes such a difference to us. The more subscribers we get, then the bigger the channel becomes. The bigger the channel becomes, the bigger the names we can attract and the more impact we can have for you. So thanks for watching, and please subscribe right now.